I'm Anna, and I will be your host today on behalf of Product People. We Product People are a German-based consultancy, and we help companies efficiently develop great products. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we can fill a temporary need in our client's organization by acting as interim, aka freelance product managers. We can do that for a couple of months, for a half a year, or even a year or longer, according to our clients' needs. Then secondly, we help our clients obtain product profitability by offering our advisory and consulting services. And last but not least, we love to share our knowledge in the field by offering product management training. So if you or anyone you know are in need of our services, please remember we are always happy to help. Furthermore, together with you, we conduct these weekly meetings. And today, like always, we have a guest who will talk to us about an exciting topic from the product management world. And this discussion will be then followed by a Q&A session and a friendly networking event on Zoom, to which you are all dearly invited. So today we have the pleasure to talk about breaking down problems in product management with our guest, Pallavi Modi. Pallavi is a PO at FlixBus. So I don't know about you guys, but I miss FlixBus so much and I can't wait to meet again. So Pallavi, thank you very much for joining us today. We are very excited to learn about this challenging topic and we are very much looking forward to your presentation. So please, you have the stage.
Sure, thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. Let me try to share my screen. All right. Great. Do you guys see it?
We see perfectly.
Great. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for joining this talk. I'm really excited to share my thoughts and also hear from you guys how you are breaking down problems in your different fields. A short introduction about me. As Anna mentioned, yes, I'm a product manager, product owner at FlixBus. I'm also a product management mentor at the Mentoring Club, which was started by Jessica and Bastian earlier this year to help people learn in these difficult times and upskill. When I'm not working, I am looking into data because that's also one of my passions, and I'm an avid reader. I absolutely love to read books, and my favorite genre is crime and thriller, and you will realize very soon why I'm telling you about this. Before joining FlixBus, I worked with Vistara. It's a Tata and Singapore Airlines joint venture. It's a full-service airline in India. I worked with Adobe and Make My Trip. Make My Trip is the market leader in India in online travel agency. So yes, majority of my work experience has been in travel, and I really enjoy that as well for myself. I'm not sure how many of you here are from product management background. The title of the group is Product People, so I'm assuming it's a majority. But this talk is not limited to people who are in product. I think everyone can learn how to break down complex problems and can apply it to their roles. However, I do start the talk with this product development cycle that I think we all are familiar with. The first step in any product development cycle is identifying the problem that we are solving for, that we are optimizing for. Once we have identified the problem, we go ahead, create and validate a hypothesis, whether it be by talking to people or doing A/B test and whatnot. We define an MVP, we execute designs, implement solutions, look at the data, see whether we were successful or not, and the cycle continues. One thing that doesn't happen when we're following this cycle is spending time on identification of the problem. We do end up spending a lot of time on the rest of the things, but the first part, the problem part, is often, like a simpler thing. Somebody asked us to build this, and hence we are building it, right? And this is the thing that I want to challenge. There are better ways of identifying a problem, of breaking it down, and that's what the talk is going to be all about. We say complex problems, but what are complex problems? What defines them? There are four main characteristics. They are very unpredictable in nature, and they have a lot of moving parts to it. In product, you have users who have changing needs, you have micro and macro economic factors, you have competition that is changing its strategy. So these are the bits and pieces that are moving, and they are out of your control as well. Because there are so many moving parts, there is no one clear straight line path to a solution. You have to be very creative because you're also constrained on resources that you have at hand. There is no single optimal solution. There are multiple solutions. Which one you choose is going to be dependent on what is the goal and what are you maximizing for. And of course, you have multiple stakeholders, whether internal or external, whether it is users or shareholders. You have to keep a lot of people happy with what you are going to build. This is about complex problems. Where do we see majority of complexity in our day-to-day lives aside from work? Is in TV shows. If you have seen Money Heist, if you have seen any of the murder mysteries, if you've seen Murder on the Orient Express, these are complex problems. There are so many different people who are parties to this conversation. And then there is one person who's trying to find out who did it, right? We are similar in product management roles. We have an unknown and we are seeking that unknown. We're trying to find answers. So I wanted to draw a bit of parallels between product and criminal investigations. So let's see, what are the components of a criminal investigation that have parallels with product management? There is an unknown. This is the problem that we are trying to solve, right? Somebody has gone missing, conversion rate is dipping, something is happening, and we do not know why it is happening. And it is this why that we seek to answer. There is a crime scene. Something has happened somewhere, right? If your conversion rate has dipped, where has it dipped? Is it on the website? Is it on an app? Is it specific to a particular browser? We do not know that. So you need to find out where the crime scene is and try to decipher what is really going on there. We interview the witnesses. Like any good detective that has ever lived, you talk to your witnesses. In our case, as product managers, we try to find out more information about what has happened, either by looking at user feedback, looking at NPS surveys, talking to our stakeholders, sometimes calling in the forensic experts like our data analysts and data scientists. We are always seeking more information, and hence we are looking at witnesses as well. We gather evidence. We look at data, we look at the metrics, we look at the insights that we have gathered through user research. And we build a timeline. That something has happened. There were events that happened before it, and there were events that happened after it. Some of these events are useful in pointing us in the right direction, and we need to find out which are those key events that are going to push us in that direction. Hence, we build a timeline. Anybody who has done any funnel analysis knows what I'm talking about here with timelines. We join the dots. Of course, we've gathered all of this information till now, and then we start to formulate some theories. But theories are bad because they are backed with our own biases. So what we do as good product managers, we formulate hypotheses, and then we try to validate those hypotheses. And we also try to poke holes in our own hypothesis, and we try to seek what is it that we do not know. Once we have found that information, we iterate and join the dots once again. So this is the general cycle of criminal investigation. Till you haven't found the real culprit, you go on and on and on, and you don't stop, right? And this is exactly what we need to do in identification of the problem and breaking it down. We go through this process till we have reached that point where we say, yes, this is the right problem, this is the right solution, or at least an optimal solution in this particular scenario. So I took the liberty of juxtaposing my criminal investigation theory into the product development cycle and say, maybe we need to spend enough time on identification of the problem as much as we are doing on execution and prototyping of the designs. So this was enough about criminal investigation for this point, but how can we actually break down a problem? There are 5 key stages to breaking down a complex problem. The first one, of course, is identification of the problem. We start with this. Once we have identified the problem, we go into the clarification stage. We are assuming that what we know is not enough. There is something more that exists outside, and we need to seek that information. Once we have that information, we need to decompose it into smaller bits and pieces that we can make sense of. And then we try to solve, we find solutions, we look for possible solutions that may exist, and we might try to optimize for those. And in the end, we question our entire process because our static assumption with solving a problem is we do not know everything. So let's go into each stage one by one. We start with identification of the problem. Why does a problem exist? A problem is nothing but a gap between the current state and the desired state. We wanted something to happen, but that is not happening. And this is the problem, right? In every scenario. So we here at this stage, what we want to understand is what should be happening, what is happening now, and why does it matter? Why should we solve this problem? Is it really worth solving? Of course, there is some business impact in case of product management. Maybe the impact is something else in a different scenario. This is the impact that we need to find out. Excuse me. Let's take 2 examples. One of a murder mystery. Well, let me not call it a murder mystery because then I'll just give away the problem. Someone has gone missing, and then we have a product problem as well. So we start with an observation. Till we have gathered fact, every starting point of a problem is an observation. It's a gap, once again, between the current state and the desired state. So Lucy is missing. She goes to school and she hasn't returned from school. It's 9:30 p.m. Her mother said she should have been home at 3. Why are we talking about it? Because Lucy's well-being is important to us. We care about Lucy. We want to find out where she is, right? In product example, CVR is dropping. In the current state, our Android app CVR is reported at around 7% since 1st December, but we expected it to be around 12%. So there is once again a gap between what was expected and what is happening. And why does it matter? Looking at the previous data, we know we might be losing 40,000 euros per day based on such dips in past times. And hence it matters to us. It's a revenue loss. So once we have identified the problem to this stage, we need to clarify, is it really a problem or is it just an observation? In the clarification state, we need to ask some more questions. We need to seek the knowledge for what we do not know. Here we say, what exactly is the problem? What you told me that Lucy is not home from school is an observation. We do not know if that is really the case. Maybe she's just sitting in her room and nobody knows about it. We also need to know when was it first noticed, who noticed it, what is the real impact of solving or not solving this problem, which parties are involved. Right now, for Lucy, a mother reported her missing, but there must be other people who know where she is. In case of CVR dip, the Android team is a party, but what is happening with others? Let's see. So, Lucy is missing. Her mother said she did not return home from school. She should have been there by 3 p.m. But then when we start asking, we find out that Lucy did arrive at home, but what we don't know is where she is now. How do we know this? Because we identified the parties. We spoke to her friend who lives across the street, and she said, yes, they walked together. Um, the sorry so the parties that we identified here are the ones that we need to start interviewing to actually reach a point where we say, is she really missing? Did she not arrive from school to home? Or is it that we just don't know where she is? Here we start formulating a concrete problem. In the case of CVR drop, we say that yes, 5 percentage point lower than expected is a real problem. That is the problem that we want to solve for. Uh, Somebody noticed it earlier today, but it has been happening since 1st of December. So what happened on 1st of December that led to this change? Who are the parties involved? Of course, it is the Android team where it is dipping, but there is also a payments team that takes care of the payment gateway. There is also a data analytics team who is responsible for looking at the data and inferring if the information shown to you is actually correct or not. So there are multiple parties that need to be interviewed to find more information. So we've gathered facts till now. We have spoken to people, we have interviewed whoever we thought should be interviewed, and now we have a bunch of information. And information is very overwhelming when you have a lot of it. So what do? You start breaking it down into smaller components. First principles is just a fancy way of saying break it down to the basic elements or assumptions that you cannot break them down any further. So what do we do over here? How can we decompose a problem? We start with what we know to be true. What is the basic truth that we are aware of in a given problem? We gather the facts around it. We have already spoken to people. We know Lucy's whereabouts are missing. That is the basic truth that we are aware of. We do not know if she reached home or not. We do not believe Claire, but we know that her whereabouts are missing. Her whereabouts are unknown. So we gather facts. We try to build our own picture. Why is it important? Because we as investigators, whether as product managers or in real life investigation drama, we need to be sure that our thoughts and our thinking is not influenced by somebody else's thoughts and their thought process. And this is the key for avoiding biases that may creep in the decision-making process. We also identify what is it that we do not know. Of course, we have put a picture together till this point, but there will be some gaps where you say, oh, by the way, I do not know if it is really this problem. We do not know how this information reached from this point to this point. These are the gaps that we will try to find out and then seek further information about it. Once again, build the links. So let's go one by one. I will introduce some bits and pieces that I actually follow in my day-to-day decomposition of problems at work. One is building a timeline. As I said, something happened and something happened before it and after it. In case of Lucy going missing, Lucy finishes her school at 2:30. Claire says they reached home at 3 o'clock and Lucy's mother reached home at 6:30. But she reported her missing at 9:30. So the real action of Lucy going missing actually happened between 3 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Everything happening before and after is not so it's not so important for us. We need to concentrate our efforts and our investigations in this time window. What we're trying to do is basically narrow down our focus into a smaller area of investigation and trying to focus what happened at this point in time and then what happened right after it and so on, so as to not get overwhelmed with everything else that was happening around us. Once we built a timeline, we found out there were certain gaps. like in the previous slide we see, we do not know what happened between 3 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. This is the gap that now we try to fill in by talking to more people. So what we do, we divide it into two bits. What is the known and what is the unknown? Known is what you have found out by talking to people. You spoke to her mother and her friend, and they inform you some things. Her school bag is there, and so on. What are the unknowns? This is where you start questioning what information you do not have. You do not know if she actually arrived home or not. Are you going to believe what Claire said, or are you actually going to find out? So we just try and question everything that we do not know at this point in time. And then, based on the information that we have gathered, of course, you're not going to leave unknowns at unknowns. You need to start going, talking to more people so that the list of knowns is much longer than unknowns. And then you create an issue tree. And this is my favorite way of solving a problem. We mentioned earlier in complex problems definition, there are multiple bits and pieces to it, right? So what are the possible things that could have led to Lucy going missing? Maybe she's visiting someone and absolutely forgot to tell her mother about it. Maybe she ran away, she was unhappy at home. Her mother did not let her use her iPhone enough. Somebody kidnapped her. Something else happened. We do not know. But these are the possibilities that we can think of that might be happening. If you notice, there is still a question mark at the end because we continue to believe we do not know the whole picture and we are always seeking something else. We are open to coming up with newer theories, newer hypotheses that might help us reach the final destination here. Once we have spoken to multiple people, we start crossing off the issues that or stories or hypotheses that do not fit in the narrative anymore because the facts do not support that. After talking to her friends and her mother, we find out no, she couldn't have run away. She's very happy at home. She loves hanging out with her family and so on. So that's not a possibility. You do not need to spend time anymore on this. Remove it out. And now we focus our attention on what is left. And now we seek further information. We create further hypotheses there. One way of creating further hypothesis is by, it's one of the frameworks is 5 whys. It was made popular by Toyota. We continue to ask, why would this happen? Why would this happen? Why would this happen? It's very annoying. Parents might know this already. Nobody likes answering so many questions, but it really helps you to get to the root cause of the problem. After you have made your issue tree, that might be another framework to try on. Let's get back to product. CVR is still dropping. After talking to people, we find out that the Android app version was released on 24th of November. The dip happened on 1st of December. So now we once again have identified the gaps in the timeline. And this is why a timeline is important. So you can see what pieces of information need focus here. So now we need to seek what happened at this point and this one where we have question marks. What happened afterwards? Why did it take Julia 8 days to identify that problem, that dip in CVR? It's a different problem to be handled, but that's not the problem that we started with. Here we are also isolating which problem we are seeking for right now and which we are going to park for a later point in time. Once again, we seek the knowns and the unknowns. We look when the CVR was stable, was there any increase in the sessions, did it impact other reporting channels, so on and so forth. And we've also looked for the unknowns, and once again, we try to answer the unknowns, seek information for those. You see the pattern that I'm suggesting once again, seek out the unknown, gather more and more information. Once again, we build an issue tree. It could be a lower CVR is a factor of higher number of sessions. It could be a factor of lesser number of orders. It could be that the tracking tool that you are using is buggy and faulty. And it could be that the report that Julia is looking at is wrong, right? It could be any of those factors. You can't eliminate any of those at this point because you do not have any information without talking to people. we look at the data and we say, no, it's not more sessions. Sessions seem exactly the same as they were earlier. They're following the trend. It's also not faulty report because, by the way, it's absolutely fine for website and for the iOS app. So why specifically the issue with Android app? So now you have crossed off those two hypotheses and you're focusing your attention once again on these two theories and then trying to find further information. One thing very important to note over here is that we do not ever throw away the facts. Facts are always important. We throw away only the theories. We keep the facts even if it does not match an existing theory. Highly likely, it is pointing us into a different direction. Probably we had not thought of that theory earlier. Now, on to the fourth stage, solving the problem. How do we solve it? Our end goal is to reduce the gap between the actual and the desired state. We are not seeking perfection, we are seeking progress. There, as we said, there is no one optimal solution. We are going to maximize the solution towards one goal. So what is that goal? We need to state that. Maybe in case of our CVR drop, our goal is to identify if we actually have the loss or not. It's this missing piece of information that we need to know. We narrow down the obstacles. That is what we were doing till now by defining what are the unknowns, right? Now we identified that probably what we do not know is how does the information flow from the Android app order creation to the actual final report that is being used across the organization. Maybe something is wrong here at this point in time. This is the hypothesis, right? This is a hypothesis that something went wrong in this flow of information from Android app order creation to the final report. Now we find out which are the parties in between. I do not know that. Now I need to again seek out information, talk to people. How does this information flow? Once we have done that, we brainstorm and evaluate possible solutions. You will always have more than one solution to a problem. Which solution do you want to implement? Again, it's a game in its own. Why? Because there are pros and cons of each and every solution that you implement. Maybe the solution that you implement is not 100% perfect, but it does do the job for 80% of the population. So should you wait to find a solution that does 100% or do you fix for 80%? These are the kind of trade-offs that we will try to make by evaluating what are the pros and cons, what do we gain to lose, what do we gain or do we lose, and how much of the problem does this solution address? In other words, how much do we reduce the gap between the actual and the desired state? Once we have found a solution, it is a hypothesis. We test out that hypothesis. We go through the cycle once again because we do not believe that whatever solution we have is the perfect solution, right? So we need to question the process. We need to question our own assumptions once again. It is possible that the solution you implemented, let's take the example of Android app. We think that it was an API endpoint that was broken, that was not sending the order information correctly to the report. If this was the gap, then at the end of it, after we have fixed that particular issue, the Android order numbers or the conversion rate should be back at its normal levels. If you see that from 7%, it got to 10%, but the desired state is still 12%, there is still a gap of 2 percentage points, right? So how much of that gap was eliminated? Well, yes, solution was somewhat perfect. But what happened to those other 2 percentage points? Why were we not able to fix that? This is the now new problem that we need to solve for. And hence we follow the process all over again to identify what happened to those 2 percentage points that we could not find by fixing that API endpoint. So in the end, we look at the 5 stages of problem solving once again. in the first stage, we identify the problem. We try to find the gap between the actual and the desired state. When we move on to the second stage, after we have identified the gap, we gather the components of the problem. Once we have gathered those components, we have identified the parties, we have identified the impact of why it should be solved, we get into the decomposition part. Here we spoke about gathering facts, building a timeline. We asked ourselves 5 whys, and we continue to seek the unknown. When we go into the solution space after this decomposition, we built hypothesis. Why do we build hypothesis and not a narrative? Because we do not want it to be influenced by any bias, internal or external, right? It is not my solution over yours. It is a solution optimally chosen based on pros and cons, based on how much is it going to make an impact for the desired goal. And in the end, we seek to question the entire process because there is no way that we made the correct assumptions. Their assumptions are just that. They are assumptions, they're not facts. They might fail. They may not fail today, but they might fail in 2 weeks' time. So we need to continue the process to identify which problem needs to be solved and how. And in the end, my favorite author said, everything must be taken into account. That is basically the first rule of problem solving. If the fact does not fit the theory, let the theory go. Do not let the fact go. And this really helps to eliminate personal biases and personal opinions. Every time I'm inclined towards choosing one solution, I think of this thing once again, and it usually helps. Not always, but yes, usually. And that's it. Do let me know what happened to Lucy, because I do not know what happened to her. Thank you very much for listening to the talk.
Thank you so much, Pallavi. Thank you for this insightful and very suspenseful presentation. I hope Lucy is just out walking the dogs or meeting her friends in the park. I'm sure it's one of those. So everyone, you are welcome to ask questions now, either verbally or in writing in the Zoom chat. Or if you are on YouTube or Facebook, we will gladly transfer your questions and ask them to Pallavi.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So first of all, thanks. Very nice presentation. I think you like thrillers and crime stories, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, me also. So very good idea to have this crime theme. How do you prevent people from jumping on too simplified solutions too quickly in the daily business? Because in theory, I often have the feeling it's very nice and clear, but when you really enter a problem space and then it's like, I did this and this and this, and how do you prevent them to go through this whole process? Not prevent them, but encourage them to go through this whole process.
Well, very interesting question, because I face the same in my day-to-day working as well. So I will not say this never happened to me. Of course it happened. What I have tried in the past is, and it has worked sometimes, not 100% success rate over here. I try to involve them early on. So when we say, this looks like a problem, step back. Somebody comes to you, we need to build this, right? And this is usually what happens with us as product managers. Somebody is coming, there is a feature, I've already thought what it needs to do. Usually I start with the 5 whys. Why do you need to build this, right? And then they will explain to you one situation. It helps me with this. And my usually next questions are following 4 whys. It's not about disrespecting anyone. It is not about discounting the thought process. It's about seeking further knowledge into why they arrived at this particular solution and not another one. And it's usually in this space, after 2 or 3 points, they start fumbling, right? It's like, I'm not sure. and this is a good hook. So let's find out why this is happening. And at this point in time, I put together a meeting, a wiki page, or whatever, and I make them my co-conspirators. So I'm not on this journey of problem solving on my own anymore. You brought a feature idea. I have asked you 3 questions. On the third one, we fumbled. We do not know the answer. Let's find it all together. And now you have their interest and their attention as well in going in the problem space rather than the solution space.
Cool, thanks.
Sure, do try and let me know if it works.
I will.
Cool.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Sandra here. Hi, Pallavi. Really cool analogy. I loved it. And what spins through my head is the first question: if you collaborate on a daily basis with the stakeholders around you, are you using the detective analysis as well and kind of like making fun a bit? And that, because I could imagine that being kind of an icebreaker. And second, do you actually have then, by opening up like this, also the possibility to bring some more people into this structured problem gathering? And how do you do that?
So yes, every Sherlock needs a Watson. There is no way you can solve a problem alone. You need somebody on this journey with you. And one of the key reasons to do this is not just to feel like, oh, look at me, I'm Sherlock. No, why you need a Watson is to spar with. It is possible that you will hit a wall at some point in time and you need to throw your ideas against someone, certain person to say, yeah, it makes sense, or no, this does not make sense whatsoever. Whatever you're talking is absolute rubbish. So yes, I do this all the time. I involve my business stakeholders, and that's where I start the sparring, so to speak. So I will start sparring with one of my business team members, maybe a designer as well from the UX team, because they also are very creative in problem solving. It always helps. When it comes to finding more ideas, finding more solutions, it is always helpful to talk to other teams. You will find out there will be a moment where you just do not know what is happening, right? In this case of Android CVR dipping, well, this was almost real analogy, almost real. I will not say anything about this further. And when I was investigating this, I did hit a wall because I had no idea how is this information flowing from this application to the final Power BI report that we are looking at, because there are data teams in between, there are BI teams, there are API teams who are processing this data, right? So something happened between this. So at this point in time, I will actually start talking to each of the teams and say, listen, this is my problem. This is my investigation. This is what I have done. What do you think about it? It doesn't hurt. And when you go with this humble approach of, I do not know, people are more than happy to help you. Everyone likes to help other people. So they jump in and say, oh, sure, let me help you find this particular answer. So they also become your co-conspirators, and they help you move towards the direction that you want them to go to as well.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
I have one question, if it's possible. Okay, if you're facing a problem, and you are taking into account, for example, the ideas of your engineers, design team, business, so on and so forth, every one of these solutions that they provide have different implications. How you will guide which is the best way to go? You will guide your decision based on the business, a goal, what the investors want, your own intuition, a mixture of what everyone says. How do you guide your, let's say, your problem solving?
This is actually the most interesting part of the problem solving, really, because as I said, everyone has their own idea. And of course, my idea is better than yours. It's always the case, right? Um, so how do you, one, walk away from my idea versus your idea so that it's our ideas, it's a pool of ideas, right? That's one of the steps. It's not um, um, it's not a product manager's idea, it's engineer's idea, it's the CTO's idea. These are ideas, and when I am evaluating solutions, I usually do it in a transparent manner. I always create a wiki page or a shared document or something where I start putting each possible solution that anybody has shared. Also, because I do not influence which idea should be taken, because my idea is also better than others. So I put all the possible ideas in a shared document, and then I ask people, the entire group, to add what do they think are the pros and cons of each of these ideas. So everyone is going to add pros and cons. Nobody is going to feel intimidated because it's not happening in person, it's happening on a document. I'm not a VP product anymore. I am not a principal engineer anymore who suggested this. It's an idea on a paper. Nobody's name is there on that paper as to who came up with that idea. Once we have the pros and cons ready, there is a deadline, and by that deadline, everyone has entered their pros and cons. We look at them together as an entire team, and we discuss those ideas and the implications of those ideas. And this is the general approach that we follow. And in the end, as I said, there is always a goal that we are maximizing towards, right? If you are, if your product team is maximizing towards the revenue, then that is your true North Star, right? So whatever decision you will make has to be linked to that particular goal. In my team, I'm working in marketplace. It's a B2B product that we are building. It's not directly about revenue. It's about maximizing, say, customer service, right? Customer happiness, whatever be the goal. You will measure each and every solution against that metric, and then say, does it make sense or not? This helps to keep the egos aside, and it also helps to strip away our internal biases towards preferring our own idea and so on.
Okay, good. That means a democratic way to. I mean, I found it pretty transparent and democratic, actually.
Yeah. Yes, it's just saying, no, we are not going to look at you as your title. We are going to evaluate the idea based on the merits of it, and that's why put it on in a shared doc.
Great, thank you. Please allow me to ask some YouTube questions. I saw Alice, you raised your hand. Please allow me to ask some questions which our guest from YouTube asked. So one question from Ashfar: what kind of daily challenges do you face being part in FlixBus as a PM, and how do you address them?
Very interesting question. So one of the major challenges that I face in my current role, as I said, it's a B2B role. It's a B2B product that I'm working on. It's about finding the users to talk to, because it's easier when you are in a B2C product. You have a lot of users. You can look at NPS surveys. In B2B, your user base is much smaller, and especially in travel domain, you have business development managers who are then talking to bus partners or train partners and so on. So it's about creating this link and not being cut off from those users. And because we are still sitting in the head office, we are not on the bus stop, we can't talk to them. It's this challenge that that I face in my day-to-day job, but I also like it because this means I need to come up with creative solutions for talking to these people.
Great, thank you so much. Just one more question from YouTube, from Indra Neil. So thank you for the nice info. Could you please share how do you decide what kind of metrics, KPIs will you use?
So, well, this is a presentation in itself, actually. It can be a very long discussion. I like to work backwards. As I said, there is one true goal that your team is optimizing for. If you are an e-commerce business, you are always optimizing for revenue, right? So revenue becomes your main metric, so to speak, or the true north goal that you are trying to achieve. And then you break it down into accompanying and supporting metrics. And it's very important to have accompanying and supporting. So what do I mean? You have conversion rate as one metric, but conversion rate in itself is not enough, because you can have a lower conversion rate when you raise your prices, right? So what you were selling for 10 euros, now you're selling for 15, lesser people are buying it, but you still have more money in the bank. And hence you need two metrics always. You need one which is supporting the other one, right? And then you break it down further. What is conversion rate dependent on? What are the factors that will lead up to a higher or a lower conversion rate? An issue tree is a very, very good way of breaking down your true north goal. Breaking down your true north goal into smaller metrics that you should be looking at.
Okay, thank you so much. These were the YouTube questions. Alice, thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my question was very much related to the discussions that we have before those two questions. So, Pallavi, thank you so much for your presentation, and I can very much relate to this creating a community around this like problem solving, right, and make it a common approach it as a team, so to say. In development, we always use like request for comments. For example, like right now I'm in a project with Andrew, so RFCs is something that we would start with when tapping into the solution space, right? I would also like to ask you, what are other assets and communication strategies that you use when solving the problems? So that's a pretty like broad question, right? So it would be very interesting to know your strategy and approach regarding that.
Sure. Yeah. I think I have first of all, thank you. I think you're absolutely right. The approach that I'm trying to use is very similar to the RFC approach. That's exactly what I'm trying to do as well. To gather as many people in at early stages, so they become the part of finding the solution. They're part of your journey. They're part of your group who's going in the same direction. For me, I think one of the biggest tool in my toolkit is transparency. I do not think that you can work in an organization with multiple stakeholders without being transparent. It just becomes more and more difficult if you build a silo around you. And there are multiple reasons to it. One, I said in the beginning of the slides of the presentation, the starting assumption is we know nothing. And this is where I start with, I have absolutely no idea. My job is to find information. So it makes you humble, you have no idea. So whatever anybody tells you is going to be a value add to from where you started, right? Added to transparency is the part of bringing people in. The earlier you bring people in, the more responsible they feel, the more invested they feel in finding the right solution. So by the end of the journey, when you are evaluating 2 or 3 solutions, it's no more about who came up with the solution. It's about finding the right solution. So, and that's why I said these are very interrelated things. There's transparency and then bringing the people in. And it can be annoying to people. But it's their problem. what I try to do is ping whoever I think is relevant, right? Even if it is not their topic directly, but they might know something because they have been in this organization for a very, very long time, or maybe because they worked in an organization that was handling a similar kind of product, although they might not be working on it now, they may still have some prior knowledge that we do not know about. So I just reach out to whoever I can, and then whoever I reach out to, it's like a pyramid scheme. You ask them, who else should I talk to? Do you think there is another person who would know more about it? And so on. It is time consuming. It does not seem easy. It does not happen in one day. But what does happen is that you end up gathering information, and then you can say, yes, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, this applies, this doesn't apply, right? So yeah, this is my communication approach to solving problems, really.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so basically what really works well for me in this case is like creating, for example, on Slack, like a just topic channel, right? Topic, and then whatever you're working on, and then actually involving those people and whoever might be interested in solving the problem, who's relevant to that, actually to also segue to that channel. So kind of like as an approach to building this transparency.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. I would take just one short question and then I would stop the streaming. One more question from YouTube, and then we can talk without the streaming on YouTube amongst ourselves. So, how do you develop your product roadmap? A question from Satya.
So, wow, this is, I just finished preparing my roadmap 2 days ago, so it's very fresh memories. Once again, the product that I'm working on is very B2B. This means that I start with the assumption I have no idea what my users want. So I start with speaking to the business development managers. What is the roadblock that they see towards our true north goal for our team, right? What are the partners saying? What information are we getting from them? In the first stage, it's just about gathering as much information, as many topics as you think are out there. It could also be coming from your stakeholders, from the business teams, and so on. So just first build a pool of ideas. You might have your own, your team has some ideas as well. Once you have gathered all of them, you evaluate them on the basis of the impact that each of them are going to make. And this is what I essentially do. Gather some information. What are the dependencies? Because in FlixBus, we have a lot of interdependencies because it's huge, way too many teams, and each team has some interdependency with another one. So if you are building a roadmap, in real world scenario, highly likely you will be blocked by another team. So you need to resolve that dependency as well with the team and say, are you going to be able to unblock us for this situation or not? And hopefully they will unblock you. And then you can say, okay, yes, it does make sense to put it on our roadmap. So there are multiple criterias. What is the impact? How much effort are you ready to spend building this particular thing? What are the dependencies on the other team? What is the organization strategy? What is your product strategy? Looking at all of those things, you would come up with something that you're going to build. And of course, what is the size of your team that you are working with? Because in the current scenario of COVID, we are also in short-term work off and on. So that also has an impact. So you are going to maximize once again towards your true north goal.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you for answering all questions. Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for your questions. Before we move to our networking event, our colleague Victoria has a Christmas announcement.
Ooh.
Yes, we made some nice stickers. I want to share some product love. So if you want to get this for yourself, please find the form, link to the form in the chat, both in Zoom and on YouTube and Facebook, wherever you're watching us. And we will be happy to send this to you as a small present for the community members.
Great. So please don't forget to write your name in the forms. Okay, so again, thank you very much, everyone. And our guests from YouTube and Facebook, you are kindly invited to join us on Zoom. We will post the link. And we also invite everyone to our next week's event, same place, same time, when we will talk about interesting product management topics with the principal product manager at Zalando. So thank you everyone again, and see you now on Zoom.